Hello and good morning dear students and welcome to BYJU'S Exam Prep IAS. Let us start with today's Hindu news analysis. Just a reminder that the PDF of the session will be available in the video description, and after the session ends there is a quiz for all of you on our Telegram channel. Okay, so what all we'll be covering for today. The first topic is about the Nari courts that are to be established by the central government. So these will be women only courts that will be available for alternative dispute resolution. This is related to both your GS1 as well as GS2. The second topic is about China. I keep on stumbling upon topics from China. So this topic is, why is China limiting exports of certain raw materials, certain very critical raw materials. The third topic is again from GS2 as well as GS3. Why are India-Russia trade payments in crisis? So you know that Russia has recently become the biggest supplier of crude oil for India. So now why are there payment crisis with regards to India-Russia trade? In the prelim section, we have 3 articles lined up. The first one is regarding the Agnipath scheme. There are deliberations within the government that there will be certain changes that will be brought in the scheme to make it more inclusive and more beneficial for the people who want to join the armed forces of India. The second topic is about the Ayushman Bharat scheme. One of the components of Ayushman Bharat, it has seen an expansion of the services it will provide. The third topic is from Science and Technology about Klotho. Klotho is a protein that is also naturally found in our body. Now why it is important, why this was in news, we'll take a look in the upcoming slides. So here is our first topic, women only court for alternate dispute resolution. First I'll let you know what do we mean by alternate dispute resolution. Usually what happens when there are tussles between two people, they go to court for the resolution. But instead of that, a third party, a third neutral party, that is not the court, it can act as a mediator between the two parties, the party 1 and party 2, and they can provide a solution. These negotiations between the parties, through the mediator, they can provide a solution to this conflict or dispute. So they do not have to now go to the courts, go to the formal courts, which will save a lot of their money, a lot of their time, and it will also save the courts with the increasing burden of the cases. So this is alternate dispute resolution. Now what is ADR in this context? What are Nari Adalats? See, the central government, they are going to set up certain Nari Adalats all across the country. Now this is not a new idea. It has been floated by many experts. In fact, some states like Uttar Pradesh, in some pockets of UP, there are already certain Nari Adalats that are already in place and working condition. The Nari Adalat, this particular scheme by the center, it will be a pilot scheme of the union government. It will first start in 50 villages in the union territory of Jammu and Kashmir as well as in the state of Assam. In the next 6 months, this will be expanded to all across the country. They will be called Nari Adalats, and their membership, it will be between 7 to 9 members. So what will be the membership composed of? Half of these women. Now members will be all women. Now half of this membership will be elected members of the Gram Panchayat, the members who have already been elected by the people in the PRI elections, Panchayati Raj elections. Rest 50% or rest half of them, they will include certain eminent people of the village, like certain teachers, doctors and social workers who are nominated by the village people. Okay, so 50% will be the elected members and 50% will be the nominated members. Now these members, they will be known as Nyay Sakhis. They will be known as Nyay Sakhis, and amongst these Nyay Sakhis, one head will be elected. This head will be Mukhya Nyay Sakhi. Now the membership of these Nyay Sakhis, it will last only for 6 months. And after the duration of 6 months, new members, they will be elected or nominated to this Nari Adalat. Now what will be the role of the courts? What will be they helping in? See, first of all, they will be established at the village level, at every village level, right? So this will make the dispute resolution system more accessible to people. Now many a times people, they have a lot of disputes, but they do not want to get involved in the court system. They say court kachehari ke isme kya jana, right? They don't want to get involved in the court system because they think it will have a very high cost. It will also have a very high component of time involved. So these Nari Adalats, they will make the dispute resolution systems more accessible to the people, especially the women. Okay. Now these courts, they will specifically be dealing with women related issues like domestic violence, like property rights. So the parties, they will come together in case any such issue is there, and these adalats will help in the alternate dispute resolution. They will also provide grievance redressal. If I have any problem with someone in my family or someone else, I can go to this court that I have this problem with this person. That person will come to the court and there will be a proper conversation or communication between the two parties. They will provide with counseling services for the women. They will also help in evidence-based decision making. They will provide data with regards to the various government schemes as well. So this data, when provided to the government will be able to make proper decisions based on the available evidence. They will be able to make proper policies as well based on the evidence, specifically with regards to women and children. It will also act as a pressure group and it will try to bring forward the issues related to the women in the region. It will help in negotiation, mediation and reconciliation with mutual consent of both the parties to make justice system more accessible, especially to the women of villages, that is the rural women. Now, see, it will be acting as a pressure group. How? Now you saw over here some of the members, they are nominated. Teachers, doctors, social workers, so they will have a very eminent status in the society, in the rural region. So this potential of the members, this potential and status of the members of the Nari Adalats, it will be used to bring out the issues related to the women and put them forward in front of the rest of the leadership of the government in that region, be it at a panchayat level or at a MP or MLA level. It will also engage in promoting awareness regarding the rights, the legal opinions of the women. It will also collect all this information, all this data through feedback exercises and provide it to the government. It will also, apart from all this, it will also be raising awareness about the various government schemes and the legal rights and entitlements of the women. How entitled are they in their property, in their husband's property? What are their various rights? What are their fundamental rights? What are their legal rights? What are the various resolution ways in which they can resolve their issues, right? So women, they will get all this information from these adalats. So adalats are not just doing dispute resolution. They are also helping in awareness creation, acting as a pressure group to bring forward women issues in front of the government leaders, and it will, apart from that, also provide data to the government for making evidence-based policies and evidence-based decisions. Now this scheme, it will be run under the Mission Shakti of the Ministry of Women and Child Development. See, all the schemes of the Ministry of Women and Child Development in the year 2021, on the on the day of International Women's Day, March 8th, it was divided into 3 groups. One was Mission Poshan, which was for the development of the children. Next was Mission Vatsalya, for protection of the children. It integrated the ICPS, Integrated Child Protection Services. Third was Mission Shakti. Now Mission Shakti, it aimed at both the development as well as the protection of women. For this, the Mission Shakti was divided under 2 subgroups. One was Sambal group and Samarthya group. Sambal group was for protection for women under the schemes like One Stop Center, Women Helpline, Ujjwala scheme. Ujjwala scheme, not the LPG one, the other Ujjwala scheme for protection for women who are in difficult circumstances. Working women hostels, they were included. Under the Samarthya scheme, schemes for development of women like the Beti Bachao, Beti Padhao scheme, schemes like that, they were included. The Matru Vandana Yojana, schemes like these were included. Now this Nari Adalat scheme, it will be included under Mission Shakti under the subgroup of Sambala scheme. Okay. Now for the scheme, the Ministry of Women and Child Development, it will not be working in isolation. It is going to work in collaboration with other ministries, specifically the Ministry of Panchayati Raj, because a lot of members of these Nari Adalats, they will be a member of what? The Gram Panchayat. It will also work in collaboration with the Ministry of Rural Development, because these Nari Adalats, they will take place in the villages, at the village level. Apart from that, the common service centers, they will be used for sending out the information about this and the other schemes by the Nari Adalat. And these common service centers, they come under what? The Ministry of Electronics and IT, that is Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology. So the main nodal agency, the nodal ministry is Ministry of Women and Child Development, and the implementation of the scheme will be done by MWCD in collaboration with Ministry of Panchayati Raj, Ministry of Rural Development, as well as the Ministry of Electronics and IT. However, please note that these Nari Adalats, they do not have any legal status. If this resolution, this alternate dispute resolution, it fails amongst the parties, then the only solution will be going to the courts. This decision, it is not legally binding on any of the parties, any of the conflicting parties. Okay, so this is a very important statement about the Nari Adalats. Now, what are the positives and the negatives? See, it will make alternate dispute resolution more accessible to the grassroots, especially to one of the most backward sections and most vulnerable sections of the society, that is the rural women. It will also help in reducing the burden on the court system, on the justice system of India, because many of the resolutions, they will be resolved at this level only and they will not go formally to the courts, right? So this is one benefit. Second is, there will be local membership. The members, they will be a part of Gram Panchayat or eminent personalities of the village itself, right? So they will be very local in nature. They will be more aware of the local problems and the local issues. So they will be more conducive in this alternate dispute resolution, as well as acting as a pressure group for the benefit of the entire village. Moreover, this position, giving this position to the elected representatives, elected women representatives of the Gram Panchayat, will help in increasing their legal knowledge. So this might act as an empowering tool, just like the 73rd and 74th Amendment of the Constitution did. It might help in increasing the legal awareness amongst the various representatives, women representatives, which will further transfer this knowledge to the other women of the region. However, what are the negatives of this? There is no legal status given to this adalat. So that means these adalats, the decision of these adalats, it is not legally binding. It is not legally binding, and the tenure of the people who are involved, the Nari, the Nyay Sakhis and the head of the Nyay Sakhis, their tenure is just 6 months. Now within 6 months, a lot of time will be spent in what? Even understanding what the issues are, understanding the work of this adalats, how these adalats they actually work. So it is not clear how effective this short tenure will be. The tenure, it can be increased, it can be increased to make these adalats more effective. Okay, right now the standard operating procedures of these adalats, they have been finalized by the government. However, they are not released for the public as of now. We just know that these adalats, they will start their work at the village level in states of Assam and Union Territory of Jammu and Kashmir. In the next 6 months, they'll come up in all the villages of the country. Okay. So this is the first topic. Now we come to the second topic. Now China, it is again in the news. Why? It is limiting the exports of certain very critical raw materials. Okay, so here I said that it will come up in the rest of the states in the 6 months. It will also come up in the rest of the union territories as well. Okay. Now China, it is restricting the export of a few raw materials, so very critical raw materials like gallium and germanium. On July 3rd, the Chinese Ministry of Commerce, it announced that they will implement export controls. That means they will restrict the quantity of how much of this material can be exported. They will also be restricting the number of exporters who have the license to export this product. So they will be implementing export controls on items related to gallium and germanium. And what is the reason given for this? Safeguarding national interest. This is a very vague reason, the same reason they gave for implementing that protection, that the one that we discussed last week, right? Now the export operators, they will have to now acquire very specific licenses for any kind of export related to gallium or germanium products. Okay, so this is very important. Now if the exporters, they are found to be exporting these products without any license, first they will have to pay certain penalties, and the exporter, they can also face certain criminal proceedings. Now China, for many months now, they have shown that how high they hold their national interests, right? So this is a part of this exercise, the interest of the exercise. Basically what they are trying to do, they are trying to wring out all these kind of high-end technologies from the world, because these products of gallium and germanium, they are used for production of certain very important technologies, high-end technologies, specifically in defense sector. Now what has this led to? This has led to an increase in the prices of these products, and there is a scramble amongst the various companies and industries who require these raw materials to acquire them in as much quantities as possible before 1st August, because this decision, it will be enforced from 1st August. It was taken on July 3rd, enforcement on 1st August. Now, why is this so important? I'll tell you what are the uses of gallium and germanium. Okay. Now, gallium, one of its components, one of its compounds, gallium arsenide, it is very much useful in the semiconductor industry. Now, semiconductors, they are used in what? Production of any kind of electronics. Your laptops, your tablets, your phones all have semiconductors. They have microprocessors, they have chips, right? They are semiconductors. It is also used in automotive industry as well as in lighting industry for production of lights. They are also used as sensors in the aviation sector, in the space sector, and in the defense sector. So this is very important. They are extremely useful, extremely critical for development of certain sensors for the defense sector. And this kind of proves why China has said that it is going to restrict the exports to protect its national interests. Now, China, the biggest thing about this issue is that China is the biggest producer of gallium in the world. It produces 80% of the global gallium that is produced in any year. So most of the countries, they are very much dependent on China for their gallium imports. Now, outside China also there is production, a small production of gallium. However, the quality of the gallium that is produced outside China, it is not very high. It is not as pure. So that is why most of the companies, they rely upon China for their gallium needs, right? What about germanium? Now, China is also the biggest producer of germanium. 60% of the global germanium production, it comes from China. Now, germanium is also used in a lot of defense technologies. It is used in fiber optic cables that are used for internet providing services, right? Fiber optic cables, they are very essential for providing internet access to the people. They are used in infrared imaging devices, especially at night. So what happens if there is an area, it is very dark and the area, there is nothing visible over there. So the infrared imaging devices, they can be used. Now they show the temperature footprints of the various items that are present in front of you that are not visible to you in your eyes. Okay, so they show the temperature footprint and the people, they are able to realize whether any person is there or not. So these infrared imaging devices, they are used by many enforcement agencies, especially for activities like surveillance, target acquisition and reconnaissance, especially during the dark time when anything is not visible. So infrared imaging or temperature footprint finding, it is most important to identify the targets, right? They are also used in clean energy. That means they are used in the solar cells, the solar PV cells that we use for converting the sun rays into electricity. Germanium, it helps these solar cells withstand high heat and it increases the energy conversion efficiency. So what are solar cells doing? They are basically converting the light energy of the sun into the electric energy. A lot of energy is lost in this process, right? So this leads to reduction in efficiency of the solar cells. But germanium, it helps in increasing the efficiency of the solar cells when they convert the light energy of the sun, the energy of the photons, into the electric energy. Now European Commission, they have already classified that these elements, gallium and germanium, they are critical raw materials for a lot of industries. Clean energy, defense, space, internet providing, and so on. However, look at its import dependency on China. 71% of gallium and 45% of germanium that goes to Europe, it comes from China. Okay, so European Union or European Commission, it has a very high dependence upon China. Now, if China restricts the exports, there will be a huge impact on the industries that use this, specifically the clean energy industry and the semiconductor industry, which are very big in Europe. They will be very adversely affected. In case of India, these elements, they have been declared as crucial for country's economic development and national security. It is used for defense. We are also trying to develop our semiconductor sector. So that means these elements, they are important for us as well. Now, why did China come up with decision and what are they trying to say about it? See, what happened in October 2022? The United States Department of Commerce, they imposed various export control measures specifically on China to protect its national interest and foreign policy interest. What is the statement given by Chinese Department of Commerce? The same. They are putting export controls to protect their national interest, right? So this is kind of a Uno reverse. Jaise ko taisa, that is being done by China right now. So what happened is that why US, it put a control on various products like advanced computing chips. So they basically restricted the export to China on various products that are used for production of advanced computing chips, supercomputers, advanced semiconductors. And they said that they are doing that in order to prevent Beijing to produce advanced military system, weapons of mass destruction, improving the speed and accuracy of its military equipments and so on. So US said that they are restricting the export so that China cannot make the components that go into production of various military equipments as well as weapons, right? So following the suit, two other countries, that is Japan and Netherlands, they also impose such export restrictions over China. Now Netherlands, within Netherlands is a company, okay, known as ASML. Now ASML, it is a Dutch company, a Netherlands based company, which is the biggest producer of semiconductors in the world. Now these semiconductors, they could not be exported to China. So China, they were not getting access to these technologies, access to the raw materials for these products. So China also said, if you are not giving it to us, we are also not providing you the raw materials that will help you in development of the things that you are not giving to us. Okay, so it's like that. It's like China is retaliating against this particular decision of United States and the other associated countries. Now China officially, the official stance of China is that this particular decision, it is not targeted on any particular country. Okay, it is not targeted on any particular country, and China has a very deep respect for supply chains of the world. They want to keep the supply chains very secure and stable. Okay, so it does not implement any kind of policies that might be unfair to free trade in the world. So that is the official stance of China. However, a former government employee said that this is nothing but a retaliation. So that the countries across the world, they get a flavor of what China can do. If they do not stop with their restrictions and any kind of imposition of sanctions over China, then China can dry out all their supply chains, which will affect not only their security but also their economy. Now, has China done any kind of such thing in the past? See, China is also the biggest producer of rare earth metals. Okay. Now, rare earth metals, they are also extensively useful in all these sectors. In clean technologies, in defense sector, in high-end science and technology research, they are very useful in that as well. Now, China has kind of a monopoly on production of rare earth metals. Okay, so it has used this monopoly in the past. How? In 2010, what happened? Japan detained the captain of one of the trawling ships of China that went into the Japanese sea. So what China did? China stopped the export of rare earth metals to Japan as a retaliation. Also, when there was a conflict between USA and China, when USA it tried to take action against the telecom giant of China, that is Huawei, on the accounts that they are doing spying activities for China, China then also threatened to include certain products which includes certain rare earth metals, and China said that they'll be banning export of these rare earth metals to USA. Moreover, US Geological Survey has said that supply of many raw materials which are very exclusive to China since the 1990s, their supply, it has been erratic depending upon the mood of Beijing, depending upon whether or not they want to drain out the supply chains, whether they have any tiff with any other country which they want to bring out in the form of these export controls. Now, what will be the impact on India? See, India, its semiconductor sector, it will be impacted in short term. We want to develop our semiconductor sector, right? However, the supply chains, they have been broken because of this export control. They will be broken because of this export control. The prices of these commodities, it will increase. And in short term, that will definitely affect our semiconductor sector. However, in the long term, what will happen? In the long term, we cannot say for clear what this policy impact will be on our sector. Why? Because this depends upon a lot of factors. Factors like whether we'll be able to diversify our sources of raw material, what will be our capacity for production of these semiconductor devices, and our membership in various strategic partnerships across the world. For example, very recently what has happened? India and US, they have become a part of initiative on critical and emerging technologies, under which the semiconductor technology, the various space technologies, the various technologies which uses these elements and the rare earth metals, they are in place. Apart from that, recently in June 2023, India also became a part of what? Minerals Strategic Partnership, MSP. What it is, we'll take a look in the next slide. So our long-term impact of this particular export control by China, it will depend on a lot of factors. In short term, definitely there will be a huge economic blow to our semiconductor sector. Now, apart from that, some experts say that this particular move by China, it also provides an opportunity for India. Now, what is there is that these elements, gallium and germanium, they are produced as byproducts of zinc and alumina processing. So India does have zinc and aluminium processing centers from where gallium and germanium, they are produced as byproducts. If we are able to recover these waste products from these production centers of zinc and alumina or aluminium, then definitely it will slightly help in increasing the availability of these elements for India. Moreover, we need to move towards the substitutes that are available for these elements. What are the substitutes? We have indium and silicon. So we can develop, see our semiconductor sector, it is still at a very nascent stage. So we can develop our semiconductor sector in such a way that instead of using these as the raw materials, we use more readily available materials, that is indium and silicon. So that will definitely help India establish itself as a semiconductor hub, and if our ability to process and produce these elements it increases, we can also replace China as a big exporter of these products to the semiconductor, defense, space and other industries. Now I said about Mineral Strategic Partnership, what it is. It was established in August 2022, basically aimed at China. See, most of the raw materials, critical raw materials that we use in the latest technologies, they come from China. Either rare earth metals, gallium, germanium or other things. So to protect the supply chains, the countries, they came together, these 13 countries. Initially it was 11 countries, later on 2 members, Italy and India, they were added. These countries came together to protect the supply chains. So this focuses on minerals that are critical for clean development. So clean energy technologies. Now you'll know that many times most of the international collaborations, they come together for something very pure. Like here they want to do clean development. However, you know that these particular metals and minerals, they are also used for defense sector, space sector. So there are certain clandestine intentions as well that are incorporated, okay? But on paper, they have come together for clean development. MSP is Mineral Strategic Partnership, okay? Someone had a doubt. Now this MSP, Mineral Strategic Partnership, it will ensure that there is non-disruptive production, processing and recycling of all the metals that are required for clean energy technologies. It also urges the various governments that are involved in this particular partnership as well as the private sector players within these countries to invest in exploration technologies, exploration of these metals that are necessary for this development, technologies for processing and recycling of these critical elements, that includes the rare earth metals, gallium, germanium and other things, okay? So it brings together the governments, it brings together the private sector to explore their countries to find various elements within their region. They also try to bring together the countries to develop various technologies so that these materials, they can be recycled. The electronics, the electronic waste, from here we can do proper waste recovery for these metals. So mainly it is aimed at China, but it is not said anywhere. It is not publicly stated that it is aimed at China. However, China, you have seen what kind of moves it is making. It is reducing these exports. It has claimed, it has actually threatened the other countries which are in conflict with it to stop any kind of supply of these essential metals. So that is why the Mineral Strategic Partnership, it came into existence, led by USA, Australia, Canada, Finland, France, Germany, Japan, South Korea, Sweden, United Kingdom, European Commission, Italy and India. Now the next topic is about India-Russia trade. Now all of you know that since the Ukraine war started, there have been many sanctions over Russia. So because of these sanctions, the normal trade which goes on in US dollar, it is not possible with Russia. Secondly, India has been importing a lot of discounted oil from Russia. In fact, in May 2023, for the first time, Russia became the biggest supplier of crude oil to India. So these are the things, these are the facts that you need to keep into mind when we start with this article. Now it is getting very tough for India to pay for oil imports from Russia. What are the reasons? See, the Western nations, they put a cap on import of the Russian oil. Some countries, they completely banned any kind of import from Russia because they didn't want to finance Russia for the Ukraine war, right? For the rest of the countries, there is a $60 limit. That means if the oil goes beyond the price of $60, that country cannot pay in dollars to Russia for any kind of trade. So India faces repercussions of breaching this oil cap of $60 a barrel that has been placed on the world by USA as well as European Union. Okay, we don't want to breach this particular limit. Moreover, if we use alternate currencies, most common one is what? Yuan. That is a Chinese currency. If we use these kind of alternate currencies like yuan, we'll be doing what? We'll be promoting the interest of China. Now India and China, they have a lot of tussles between each other. There are a lot of border skirmishes that are happening. So we do not want to benefit our enemy. So these are the two biggest reasons why we are seeing that it is getting so tough between India and Russia to conduct any kind of trade. Now, what is the status of Indian oil imports from Russia? Now, until an year ago, most of our oil imports, they were coming from three areas. That is West Asia, our biggest supplier. We also had USA and we had West Africa. So these were the biggest suppliers to India. However, in February 2023, what happened? We had been importing a lot of oil from Russia because Russia was providing it what? At discounted price. So in February 2023, Russia became the second biggest supplier of oil to India, surpassing Saudi Arabia. Now in February 23, Iraq was still our biggest supplier of oil. Second became Russia and then came Saudi Arabia. In May, this was further reversed. Russia became our biggest supplier. Now, unlike the Western nations, unlike USA and European Commission, we chose that we will not join the list of countries that are imposing any kind of formal sanctions on Moscow, because we had good relations with Russia and we did not want to jeopardize any of our national interests for this reason. So India's imports from Russia, they increased rapidly. We were importing only $2.5 billion worth of imports from Russia between 2001 to 22. But this increased 13 times to $31 billion worth of crude oil imports from Russia. 13 times. That is one figure that you can easily use in any of your answer to show the gravity of the situation, how rapidly, how exponentially this increase has happened. India also accounted for more than 70% of the seaborne supplies of the Russian oil. That was under $60 a barrel. We did not want to breach the $60 limit. So all the oil that we were importing was under the $60 limit. That made India one of the biggest countries, one of the biggest importers of Russian oil. More than 70% of all the oil from Russia that was going through the sea route was coming to India. Now, how are we paying it? How are we paying it? That is the biggest concern. See, as the war started, many countries like USA, European Union and United Kingdom, they blocked Russia completely from the SWIFT system. What is SWIFT system? It is Society for Worldwide Interbank Financial Telecommunication. So what happens in the SWIFT system is that the transfer of funds can happen from any bank in the world to any other bank in the world only using this SWIFT system. Now, these countries, they banned Russia from using the SWIFT system. The ban was basically imposed at reducing the exports of Russia. Now, the biggest export of Russia was what? Crude oil. So they were basically targeting the exports of Russia so that Russia cannot get extra funds which would be eventually used for the Ukraine war. Okay. Apart from that, these countries also jointly agreed that any kind of buying or selling, basically buying of Russian oil, cannot take place above the $60 limit. So if there is $60, under $60, then dollars could be used for payment to Russia. However, if it breaches the $60, dollar cannot be used. Now, because the SWIFT system, because Russia was banned from the SWIFT system, already what is happening? Already estimated $500 million of Indian exporters, they are pending with Russia. So Russia has not paid $500 million to many of our exporters for the things that they imported before this SWIFT ban. So this is already happening. Also, what is another reason? What is another thing that's happening? Now, until recently, the prices of this Russian oil, they were below the $60 limit. Why? Because they were providing extensive discounts. They were providing extensive discounts, so India was able to pay using the dollars. But Russia has now lowered these discounts. So the prices, they are going above the $60 limit. Why did they lower the discount? One, because of high demand from China. China again comes into the scene. High demand from China. And another reason was that we were getting low grade oil from Russia. We were getting lower grade oil from Russia. Now this lower grade oil that Russia was selling to us, it was cheaper compared to the higher grade oil, right? So it was under the $60 limit. However, now there is a short supply even of this lower grade oil. So these two factors combined, lower supply of the higher grade of the lower grade oil, as well as increase in demand by China, it has forced Russia to reduce the discounts that it is given to India on import of this oil. Now India, it was in negotiations with Russia to bring about an exchange of money using their own domestic currencies, that is rupee-ruble trade arrangement. So we could pay either in rupee or ruble, and same with Russia. We would eliminate the use of US dollars. But because of a few reasons this could not take place. What are the reasons? One is that ruble, the rate of the ruble, the value of the ruble, it is not decided by the market. It is not decided by the market. It is kept up by various capital controls and not decided by the markets as the value of rupee is. Okay, so that is one reason. So the exchange rate, we do not know whether the exchange rate it is proper or not, because it is not market driven. It is driven by the Bank of Russia, the central or the federal bank of Russia. The second reason is that Russia thinks that Indian rupee it is very volatile. See, Indian rupee, its value is completely dependent upon what? The market forces. The RBI only undertakes the open market operations in case of very extreme cases, right? In order to control the volatility. So Russia thinks that Indian rupee, it is very volatile. The third thing is that, see, since the war, this oil trade between India and Russia, it exponentially increased by 13 times. Now this has extremely increased what? Our trade deficit with Russia. So our trade deficit, it has already touched the mark of $43 billion in 2022-23. Our imports are worth $49.35 billion, while our exports are very paltry, only $3.14 billion. So what is happening? Earlier we were trying to pay using rupees, right? But because our imports are so low, Russia has such a huge reserve of Indian rupee with themselves that they are not able to buy anything because our exports are so less. So Russia is not willing to keep such high reserves of Indian rupee, because they are useless for them. They cannot use Indian rupee for trade with any other country, and India is not providing enough supplies to Russia so that it can use up these reserves. So these are the three reasons why there is a problem with using the Indian rupee and ruble system for our trading, right? Now America, it has the history of using its international position, its country's international position as a weapon. It has been imposing sanctions on various countries that go against their policies, right? So this has given a rise for many countries who want to replace the US dollar with any other currency. China, it is in a race to make yuan an international currency just like US dollar. Now, why was US dollar chosen as an international currency? Because USA, it had trade relations with almost all the countries of the world, right? So almost all the countries, they had some reserves of US dollar. So for example, Sri Lanka and India, they were in trade with USA. So they had reserves of US dollar, right? So they had reserves of US dollar. So it was agreed that Sri Lanka can pay India with US dollars or India can pay Sri Lanka with US dollars, because they knew that anyhow they can use these US dollars for their extra trade with USA. So that is how US dollar, it became an international currency, because of high level of trade of US, high footprint of this currency of USA in the world. China also has a very high footprint now. It has trade relations with almost all the countries of the world, and that has increased the value not in monetary terms but in terms of basically the reverence for the yuan, that is the Chinese currency, and it can replace US dollar in the future. Now India was also trying for the same. India is also trying to make Indian rupee as an international currency. But what is the problem related to that? Our footprint is very less. The daily average share of rupee in the global foreign exchange market, it is very low at only 1.6%. Even our share of global goods trade is only 2%, which is very minute, very tiny. So if India pays another country with Indian rupee, then they won't be able to use this Indian rupee for trading with a third party. So many countries, they are not accepting Indian rupee as in an exchange for their products, right? So this is the biggest struggle of India when it comes to international trade, especially with the countries which have any kind of sanctions with USA. So meanwhile, what India is doing, we are settling some non-dollar payments with Russia using either Chinese yuan or the dirham of UAE. Yuan we don't want to use, because using yuan will definitely increase the prestige of what? Of China. We don't want to do that, because this will increase even the geopolitical power of China, which is not at all in favor of India. So what can be the solution? The solution can be kind of a barter system in terms of investment. So Russia can make investments in energy products of India using the Indian rupee, or they can use their rupee reserves to invest in Indian government bonds. So this is the only solution, only long-term solution for this problem. The second very long-term solution would be making India as a global currency. But that will be very long away. It is a very long away thing, because our footprint, our trade footprint at an international level is only 2%. Okay, so this is about this particular topic. Next we move on to the Prelims Bytes section. The first article over here is about the Agnipath scheme. Now first, a little about the scheme. The scheme was introduced back in June 2022 for recruitment of soldiers into the various armed forces of India. Now this recruitment was to be done for 4 years, and after those 4 years, a few percentage of these recruitees, they would be retained, the rest would be let go of. The age bracket for the new recruits, it was fixed between 17.5 years to 21 years. However, there were a lot of protests against such low age limit, and because of that, this age limit only for 2022 recruitment, it was increased to 23 years. The reason given for this was that because during COVID, there were no recruitment of people in the armed forces, so many of the candidates, they lost their chance. Also the military of India, it lost upon a lot of personnel. The personnel, they were retiring, but there were no new recruitees. Okay, so 25% of these recruited people, they were to be retained in the armed forces. The main intention of this scheme, apart from providing employment and training and discipline to the youth of India, was bringing down the average age of the armed forces of India from 32 years to 26 years, which is in line with the global average. Now, what are the deliberations regarding this scheme, recent deliberations? The first is that per batch recruitments, they will be increased from earlier 40,000 to 46,000. Also, the retainment will be increased from 25% to 50%. Now these are just deliberations, okay? These are not final decisions. The government is deliberating on these issues. They may or may not adopt this. So there will be an increase in recruitment to the permanent cadre. This is very important, from 25% to 50%. Now the reason why this is there is because during COVID, there were no new recruitments because of the various lockdowns and other issues. Secondly, every year the army, it loses 60,000 soldiers to retirement. So 60,000 soldiers, they retire every year. So there is a lot of deficit, a lot of vacancies in the armed forces, especially the Army of India. And because of which we are trying to bring in these reforms to this scheme. Apart from these reforms, the government is also, the services, the three services, they are also debating about imposing certain criteria for the trainees who leave during training. Now what happens, these trainees, they get selected, they start their training, but if they find a new better opportunity, they leave midway. So that is causing a lot of problem to the armed forces, and they are also trying to bring in certain conditions for recruitment of these Agniveers so that they do not leave mid training. The second article is about the Ayushman Bharat scheme. Now Ayushman Bharat scheme, it was introduced when? In the year 2018. It was announced basically during the budget of 2018. Now under this scheme there are two components. One is health and wellness centers. Second is Arogya Yojana, Pradhan Mantri Arogya Yojana. Now this provides health insurance, and health and wellness centers, they are basically created by transforming the existing primary health centers and sub-centers to provide the citizens with a lot of facilities like providing comprehensive primary health care. The main intention was to bring healthcare closer to the homes of the people. So under these wellness centers, it covers the maternal and child health services, non-communicable diseases. It provides certain free essential drugs and certain diagnostic services. So these were the intentions of this scheme, right? So the union government, it has decided to add certain services into the scheme. What kind of services? Screening, prevention, control and management of all the non-communicable diseases like various heart diseases, diabetes, and so on. Care for ophthalmic and ENT problems, basic oral health care, elderly and palliative health care services, emergency medical services, and screening and management of even mental health issues. Okay, so government is going to add all these services, extra services to these health and wellness centers. Now for this, they are also increasing the availability of free drugs and diagnostics that will be available in these centers. So they are going to make available 171 medicines at primary healthcare centers and 105 at secondary centers. 63 diagnostic services will be added at the primary health centers and 14 at the secondary health centers. So this is the intention. Also a new cadre of health officers, almost 1.29 lakh health officers, it has been introduced at the secondary centers. Primary health centers are at the base, above which are the secondary centers. So at the secondary centers, a new cadre of these health officers has been introduced, and they will act as clinicians and public health managers, and they will also help in leading and guiding way for the various Anganwadi workers, the ASHA workers and ANMs, that is auxiliary nurse midwives. So they'll act as leaders for all these categories of healthcare workers. Also, these centers, these health and wellness centers, they are being promoted or encouraged by the government to undergo the National Quality Assurance Standard Assessment and Certification. And it is expected that by the year 2026, 50% of these health and wellness centers, they will have undergone this particular certification and assessment. The third topic is about Klotho. Now Klotho, it is a protein that is naturally found in some of our tissues over on the surface of the cells. So where it is more commonly found? In blood, urine, as well as cerebrospinal fluid. Now it is in higher levels, higher quantities in our kidneys. Now the biggest thing about Klotho is that it is linked to longer lives, that is longevity. And that is why it is also known as the longevity factor protein. Now it is linked with longer lives, and that is why it can be extremely helpful for many therapies, many kind of therapies that can help in treatment of many of the neurodegenerative diseases, mainly like Alzheimer's. So it has already been seen then that when Klotho protein, it was injected in rhesus monkeys, it showed an improvement in their memory. So rhesus monkeys who were aged about 22 years, in human terms that is about 65 years, they became better at remembering where the food was hidden. So the scientists, they hid the food and they told them. After some time, they were asked to find where the food was hidden. The monkeys who got these injections, they had a better memory power compared to the monkeys who did not. So that is why it can be used in future in neurodegenerative diseases for redressal of such diseases. Now in science and technology, especially in your prelims, they'll just give you the term, what do you understand by Klotho, which has been in news recently. So in that case, you need to remember that this is a protein associated with longevity. The first time its 3D structure was identified was very recently in 2018 by various scientists at the Yale University. So, summarizing it, our first topic was about Nari Adalats, how the government is trying to establish these Nari Adalats in all over the country, in the villages, in the next 6 months. Second topic was about how China is restricting the import of gallium and germanium, which are very essential for clean technologies, for defense as well as space sector. How it will impact India, how it will impact the global economy and the defense sector. The third topic was about Indo-Russia trade. How we are finding it very problematic to pay for all our imports from Russia. Then in prelim section, we first talk about the various deliberations that are going on for improving the Agnipath scheme, for bringing changes in the Agnipath scheme. Second, what all changes are being brought to the health and wellness centers by the union government. And third, about the Klotho protein, which is naturally found in our body and is associated with longevity, can be used for therapies for neurodegenerative diseases. Now in the mains practice question section, there are 2 questions for you. The first question is, the Nari courts will be helpful in making dispute resolution more accessible to rural women. Analyze, just a 10 marker, 150 words. Analyze, you need to give a background about the scheme, then the various positives and the negatives associated with the scheme. The second question is, China has been using its position as one of the biggest producer of critical elements for geopolitical gains. Elucidate. You can mention about the current decision. You need to elucidate, that means you need to give examples. So you need to mention about the current situation and how in the past, in 2010, in late 2010s with USA, since 1990s, they have been manipulating the availability of such resources, how China has been manipulating its availability, its supremacy in production of these metals for geopolitical purposes. So that is about the second question, and with that we come to an end to this session. I hope it was interesting for all of you. So thank you very much, have a very good day, and do not forget to go to our Telegram channel for the quiz. So okay, bye bye.